The fight against stop and frisk is an LGBT fight, a civil rights fight, a labor movement fight, a fight for justice and equality, a fight that unites all of us as one movement.
We gather here today to announce a coalition of over 50 local, state, and national LGBT organizations and leaders who have come together to endorse the Silent March to End Stop and Frisk and to send a message to Mayor Bloomberg and Ray Kelly that the LGBT community will not tolerate a policy that criminalizes any entire population, whether based on sexual orientation, gender identity, or race.
Police profiling and targeting is institutionalized racism, homophobia, and transphobia aimed at people who do not conform with rigid race, gender, or sex roles, and is unacceptable state-sanctioned violence.
Our quest, all of us as New Yorkers, is to make this a city that is free and safe and embracing for everyone. And if you have a situation where the relationship between communities and the police department is severed, then those communities can never feel or really be safe. Because the key to making our city safe is to have a positive connection between the police and the communities they are charged with protecting.
All of us are being harassed for the same reason, and that is that there are those in law enforcement that feel that civil rights does not apply to them. And we must fight this together and then fight in other areas across the board where there is discrimination. It will begin Father's Day as we stand together on Stop and Frisk, but it will not end there, because we will usher in an era in this city and nation where people understand there is no such thing as selective civil rights activism. Wow. You must be for the civil rights of everyone, or you're not for the civil rights of anyone.
It is time for us as a nation to do what we are doing here today, to recognize that at the end of the day there is just one community, just one New York City, just one nation, that we are all one people, that we can no longer tolerate the notion that some people are more criminalistic because of who they love, or more criminalistic because of what color they are, or somehow less than in any way. Our movements have been coming together for a long time. In truth, going back all the way to Bayard Rustin, have really been one movement for a long time, but we have needed for a long time to really make that visible, to really make that clear, to really stand together in a way that is unequivocal, so that nobody who hopes to lead this city believes that they can lead this city and simultaneously permit their city's finest to abuse their city's children in the way that Mayor Bloomberg has let his city's finest mistreat the city's children.
People should pay attention that the oppressed are not oppressed anymore. We're not fighting with each other anymore. We've come together, we coalesce, because we know what it feels like to be discriminated. When we fight this justice policy, stop and frisk, it is a policy that is broken and is unjust.
Stop and frisk is commonly phrased as an issue that disproportionately impacts Black and Latino men. But missing from the statistics in the press, the barbershop narratives, is the reality that lesbian, gay, transgender, and bisexual people of color, including myself, are among those subjected to over 685,000 stops and frisks by the NYPD last year, and that LGBT people of color have been at the forefront of resistance to abusive policing since way before Stonewall.
We're not here though just because of comedy, we're here because of common cause. Because not the LGBT community includes many Black and Latino members who have also suffered together from police harassment.
The face and voice of transgender New York is not older or white and college educated. It is a face of color, from Harlem, from Puerto Rico, the Caribbean, from South America, from Africa. Transgender women come from all over the world to be free in New York City, and to be hassled and harassed not only by the police force, but by a vast community that neither understands nor respects them is not only unfair, but it's tragic.
We're standing here together as communities that are joined together to advance a social justice mission that is inclusive. And I'm so excited that we'll be able to take the momentum from the marriage endorsement, from this march, and from other other ventures that we stand holding hand in hand together to advance and definitely create a new future where children that come won't even know that there was such a thing as racial profiling or disparity because we were transgender.
Making people afraid to report crimes, afraid to come forward as witnesses, does not make this city safer. This policy makes this city a more dangerous place for all of us. Stop and frisk and the racial profiling behind it is destroying the social fabric of this city. It leaves us unsafe, and it must stop.
The reality is that stop and frisk is a not consistently used and applied intervention, and that public safety should not be used as an excuse to put nooses around the necks of young black men.
Stop and frisk is criminalizing an entire generation of young people of color, with some being stopped 10 to 20 times a year. Many of the stops involve LGBT people of color, members of the transgender community, and our homeless LGBT youth.
This is our fight. This is every one of our fight. I know there are those white New Yorkers who are people of wealth who say, marriage equality, it's over, gay rights, we're done. This is what those of us who have been fighting for gay rights must fight against at every point.
Part of what we see this moment as is a moment where there's a significant and severe civil rights crisis in this city that exemplifies racial profiling at its worst.
We are united, we are working together, there is no stopping us today or forever.